If you are an American, your media is the least trusted media in the world by you. Americans don't trust their media. Why could that be when the media is so great and trustworthy? Another lie! You can't try it. I mean, even this is lies now.
When it comes to trust in the media, it seems the US is falling way behind. There's also been a sharp fall in the number of viewers and readers, according to a study by Britain's Oxford University. I'll tell you more. The annual poll of almost 100,000 people covers news consumption in 46 markets around the globe.
Perhaps the fact that you call them markets and that they are indeed markets whose primary function, therefore, is to sell products, that's what you do in markets, is contributing to this lack of trust. If what media does primarily is serve their advertisers and partners in big business rather than conveying truthful information to the recipients of that data, then obviously trust is going to break down. This story came to our attention because high-profile news media figures like Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow are now understood legally to be opiners and performers more than they are conveyors of news and information. Again, our friend Glenn Greenwald revealed a court recently ruled during a defamation case that Rachel Maddow's viewers know she offers exaggeration and opinions, not facts. This follows a similar case involving Fox News, which argued that viewed in context, Tucker Carlson cannot be understood to have been stating facts, but instead delivering an opinion using hyperbole for effect. So, take a figure from the left, Rachel Maddow, and a figure from the conservative right, Tucker Carlson. It's understood at a legal level that they can't be done for defamation because the viewers understand it's kind of performance.
For instance, almost as many distrust CNN as trust the left-leaning network. The figures are almost identical as well for rival MSNBC. Fox News, well, that's suffering one of the worst trust ratings of them all.
The news as entertainment has become accepted. It's accepted, I don't know by whom, because I still feel that if you're watching Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson, you're sort of expecting that what they're saying is true. By saying it's entertainment, what you're also kind of saying is that it's sort of lies, that it's performance, and that we're supposed to understand that as viewers. So this is the story. MSNBC's top-rated host, Rachel Maddow, devoted a segment in 2019 to accusing the right-wing cable outlet One America News of being a paid propaganda outlet for the Kremlin, discussing a Daily Beast article which noted that one OAN reporter was a Russian national who was simultaneously writing copy for the Russian-owned outlet Sputnik on a freelance contract. Maddow escalated the allegation greatly into a broad claim about OAN's real identity and purpose. In this case, she announced the most obsequiously pro-Trump right-wing news outlet in America really literally is paid Russian propaganda. Now that seems like a fairly strong assertion and not one that I would assume was performative or rhetoric. And if you do assume that that's performance and rhetoric, you have to, I think, assume that all news received through those outlets is a kind of performance. Now, I am literally a comedian by trade, a performer, but I recognise I bring opinion and commentary and reaction to news stories, but I'm not saying anything that I literally don't think is true for reasons of advancing a particular argument. I'm operating on the basis that you might really love Donald Trump, or you might be a full-on leftist academic, and that you would just watch from wherever and go, yeah, I disagree with him, but I don't think he's trying to trick me. You can't say the same about mainstream or cable news anchors. In concluding that Maddow's statement would be understood even by her own viewers as non-factual, the judge emphasised that what Maddow does in general is not present the news, but rather hyperbole and exploitation of actual news to serve her liberal activism. Maddow's own viewers, ruled the court, not only expect but desire that she will not provide the news in factual format, but will exaggerate and even distort reality in order to shape her opinion-driven analysis. In sum, ruled the court, Rachel Maddow is among those speakers whose statements cannot reasonably be interpreted as allegations of fact. Despite Maddow's use of the word literally to accuse OAN of being a paid Russian propaganda outlet, the court dismissed the lawsuit on the ground that given Maddow's conduct and her audience's awareness of who she is and what she does, the court finds that the contested statement is an opinion that cannot serve as the basis for a defamation claim. In a way, what that makes me feel like is that these figures, and I have not looking to condemn them individually or personally, I don't know them, but like that they are mascots of a set of beliefs, in the same way that you wouldn't trust Ronald McDonald's opinions on Burger King because you think, well, it's Ronald McDonald. What are they? News figures or just mascots of a set of beliefs? What makes this particularly notable and ironic is that a similar argument was made a year later by lawyers for Fox News when defending a segment that appeared on the programme of its highest rated programme, Tucker Carlson Tonight. That was part of a lawsuit brought by the former model Karen McDougal, who claimed Carlson slandered her by saying she extorted former President Trump by demanding payments in exchange for her silence about an extramarital affair she claimed to have had with him. McDougal's lawsuit was dismissed in 2020 by Trump-appointed judge Mary Kay Viscoso, based on arguments made by Fox's lawyers that were virtually identical to those made by MSNBC's lawyers when defending Maddow. In particular, the court accepted Fox's argument that when Carlson used the word extortion, he meant it in a colloquial and dramatic sense, and that his viewers would have understood that he was not literally accusing her of a crime, but rather offering his own subjective characterizations and opinions, particularly since viewers understand that Carlson offers political commentary. Now, whilst all these statements took place in a complex legal setting where the lawyers would necessarily have had to have presented stories and narratives to ensure that their clients were not prosecuted or persecuted financially as a result of stuff that they'd said that was, libelous on air, it still tells us something interesting and important about the relationship between the viewers of media and the makers of media in relation to this story about trust. People don't trust the media because they know that the media are not telling them the truth. The media are relaying a set of principles and ideas that are usually not beneficial to the recipients of the information, but to the media partners who corporately sponsor them, or the state who allow legislation through that's beneficial to them. The media isn't trusted because the media can't be trusted. And that doesn't matter whether you're talking about left-wing figures or right-wing figures, left-wing stations or right-wing stations. In fact, all these terms are kind of ridiculous because they all exist in a tiny sphere of possible ideas, and ideas that are outside of them, ideas that challenge the media, big business and the state, are ignored. The really important and radical ideas will never be presented to you through mainstream media, but precisely because they are a challenge. Anything that really empowers ordinary people, and ordinary people includes all of us, frankly, any ideas like that are dismissed, ignored, censored, undermined, because the function of power is to preserve its own power and interests. That's how you end up with a situation where most people don't trust the media, and where in court lawyers can say, hey, the people watching this stuff know it isn't true. They know it's only a performance. Well, I hope you do know that it's only a performance. I hope you do know that it isn't true, that they can't be trusted, that you can dismiss it. And I hope you make your decisions with that understanding.
The US is one of the few countries not, in fact, to have seen an increase in trust recently. And it seems that collapse marks a massive drop in just a few years as well. It's happened quickly. Let's wind back 4 years. 2017. Then almost 4 in 10 Americans still had trust in their news organisations, but look at the way it's gone.
In a sense, what's more surprising is that anybody has any trust left at all after the last couple of years, after the way that the sort of cultural, political, pandemic issues have divided people, cudgelled people into a kind of bewilderment and lack of connection. I feel that what we need is to have transparency in media. I mean, it just seems like odd that something so simple would seem so bizarre and frankly unachievable. The same way that you would want money to be out of politics, i.e. people in senior positions of government shouldn't have affiliations or relationships with corporations that they could benefit from, the same should be true in media. Media organisations, if they have strong relationships with pharmaceutical companies, or if they have shared board members with other interests, it's going to prevent transparency, the one thing that media truly requires, from ever taking place.
The commercial model of the US media is to cater to a specific demographic. With the rise of the internet and alternative sources, these traditional news outlets could no longer reach a broad audience because they didn't have a monopoly.
That tells you something important as well, that given choice, people start to leave those organisations, and then those organisations think, oh God, what can we do? What if we start lying to them and pleasing them? Yeah, all right, let's do that. So no, we can't do that because we're the news. It just shows you that none of these centralized institutions can survive in a natural environment. Free market capitalism, which tells you all the time, hey, this is just what happens, man. No, this isn't what happens. What happens is when you trust people, is people get on with it, form their own alliances, form their own communities and collectives. And that only doesn't happen on a broader scale because there's preventative measures in place to prevent it everywhere. And the media is the great sort of scrutinizing beam of lies and deception that coruscates you into inaction.
And therefore, they decided to go after a particular demographic. And now what you've done is pit demographic against demographic. Whether it's MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, they've become partisan, catering to their particular demographic and what it wants to hear, but often at the expense of the truth.
In a sense, that shows you how these two entities serve each other. MSNBC need Fox News need MSNBC. They need each other for rivalry. The same thing is probably true in politics, that they just buttress up against one another, ensuring that no real valuable ideas are ever seen or heard in the mainstream. It's absolutely, it's a stymieing, stifling, stagnant system. And look at what's happening around protest laws now. Protest has been prevented, so more and more opportunity for change and discourse is being flattened out through censorship and extra legislation.
That's the commercial model that's been created. It's kind of, hate versus hate, whether that's Sean Hannity on one side or Rachel Maddow on the other. They all do the same thing, but it's not journalism. It's just, burlesque or vaudeville masquerading as journalism.
Oh, fantastic. What a brutal conclusion that is. The news is essentially stripping. It's a kind of performance, and a sleazy one at that. If you like this video, please like, please subscribe to it. Do all sorts of little duties. Press a notification bell, sign up to my mailing list, listen to my podcast where I am committed through my subscription model, let's face it, to conveying complex conversations to you and then providing meditation. Go over to look in the link in the description. If you've got Apple, you can get it pretty easily anywhere in the world. I suppose what this tells us is that you have to find figures like me that you trust in media and get your information from them, but also be circumspect always about all of the information. Take it from wherever you can and recognize in a sense that much of this information, whilst hugely significant, is kind of abstract because we live our lives in local communities, and really that's where power should be.